Some of the game's greatest all-time players never won it all. Charles Barkley, Karl Malone, Steve Nash, and others like LeBron James had to experience losing over and over before winning their first titles. LeBron had 6 postseason losses, and Dirk Nowitzki handed out the 6th one back in 2011, leading the Mavs to their first and only championship in franchise history. But Dirk himself previously had 10 playoff losses with many heartbreakers before winning his one. Now, a decade later, the Mavs have Luka Doncic, who just experienced his toughest series loss as an NBA player, losing in 5 games to the Warriors in the Western Conference Finals. Luka put his greatness on display throughout the postseason, averaging 31.7 points, 9.8 rebounds, and 6.4 assists. He's now at 32-9-8 in his 28-game postseason career. Nobody's been better. Nobody's been this great at age 23. But as Steph Curry himself said during the series, the Warriors are playing their best basketball of the season. Silly podcasters like me picked Dallas to win the series after Memphis gave Golden State a run, but all the Warriors really did in the West Finals was exploit the Mavs' weaknesses, showing what it really takes to make the NBA Finals, both for the team and Luka as an individual. The Warriors got to the rim at will, which shows the need for a starting center better than Dwight Powell. Maxi Kleber had to play center, and Dorian Finney-Smith and Reggie Bullock couldn't stop everyone on the perimeter. Perhaps most importantly, Steph made play after play on defense to help his team win, showing just how far off Luka is from playing basketball at the highest level in May and June from a conditioning standpoint. Luka, on the other hand, was effectively targeted on defense. Second Spectrum says Doncic was brought into the pick and roll as a screener defender 21.2 times per game in the postseason. That's more than any forward in the league. The Jazz, the Suns, and the Warriors all wanted to wear him out, and they had great success generating offense when defended by him. Luka didn't offer resistance on defense too easily, just letting Steph scoot by him. He lacked the foot speed, energy, and effort to consistently stay in front of him, and given the lack of rim protection inside, it meant guys like Spencer Dinwiddie and Jalen Brunson were often in a help position. That's too easy for Steph. Sometimes the Mavs would pressure Steph with 2 guys, but he was still able to create room to draw defenders for Kevon Looney to get baskets inside. He'll need to round out his game to be the best player on the last team standing, and I think he knows it considering what he said after scoring 40 points in Game 3.
I think the first 2 quarters, I played very bad. That's on me. But I'm still learning, and I think after this season is done, whatever we are, I think I'm gonna look back, and learn a lot of things. It's my first time in conference finals in the NBA. I'm 23, man. I'm still learning a lot.
The greats always get better from adversity, so it's time for Luka to prove that he can do the same. And we're going to know right away on day 1 of training camp this fall whether he worked hard on his body this summer to get into the best shape of his life or not. It's scary to imagine what a ripped Luka would perform like, and I'm sure the Mavs would even settle for a lean Luka. But if the star does his job this summer, then the head coach Jason Kidd, the GM Nico Harrison, and the owner Mark Cuban are all also going to have to be ready to do theirs to compete for titles. Let's talk more about the Mavs' future, what to watch for this offseason, and some potential changes we could see to this team. Odds are it'll be a multi-year project for the Mavericks to upgrade the roster, but they should have 3 priorities. Find more wings, find a center better than Powell, and find a better second best player, because Brunson and Dinwiddie are important shot creators for the Mavs, but they don't solve the team's problems helping at the rim, and they aren't on-ball stoppers. And even though they generate shots, neither of them are as great as some of the other second best players on playoff teams. So whether they're keepers or not doesn't change the basic fact that in addition to needing to improve, Luka does need some more support around him. So let me know in the comments which players the Mavs should pursue. I think the top player on their list should be Rudy Gobert. Over the past 5 seasons, including the playoffs, Second Spectrum says only 42 players have defended at least 5,000 pick and rolls. Gobert has defended the second most total behind Nikola Jokic, but Gobert is allowing only 0.88 points per pick and roll, by far the best in the NBA. No one else is under 0.9. Only Joel Embiid is in the same stratosphere as Gobert, and if the Jazz are willing to trade this 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, a new team could even be getting the best version of him. In Utah, Gobert was the NBA's best interior defender and a dominant force defending pick and rolls, despite having less than ideal perimeter defenders around him. But on the Mavs, for example, Gobert would have the best wing support of his entire career with Reggie Bullock, Dorian Finney-Smith, and Maxi Kleber. Pushing Kleber from center to wing is important for Dallas since he only had to play the 5 by necessity this season, but he was actually at his best in previous years sliding on the perimeter while offering help inside. Except now it'd be Gobert protecting the paint, not Kristaps Porzingis. Imagine a lineup with Bullock, DFS, Kleba, Luka, and Gobert. All 5 of them have size and length, and if Luka can improve defensively, there wouldn't be any player to effectively target. Even if Gobert got pulled to the perimeter on a switch, all of those players have the size to help inside. The Mavs could be massive, providing the interior presence to erase mistakes on the perimeter. Gains on offense could come as a result of getting more stops and generating early offense or transition chances. And in the half court, Gobert would provide Doncic with the best screener and lob threat he's ever played with. Gobert has great hands catching high passes, and he's a quick finisher on dump-offs. Against switching defenses, he isn't going to create for himself, but he has improved at using his sides to bump defenders and get to the basket. Luka has feasted with Powell as a screener for years, and even guys like Willie Cauley-Stein and DeAndre Jordan managed to look good with him. Gobert has posted excellent numbers with inferior playmakers, Joe Ingles, Donovan Mitchell, Mike Conley, all quality players, but nowhere near the level of a passer as Luka. Against Utah, teams would hide smaller defenders on Gobert, then switch them on to Conley or Mitchell to neutralize the pick and roll, but they can't bully them like Luka can. We saw Doncic back down Chris Paul many times, so switching could be less effective. Gobert's ability to maintain his offensive value in the playoffs does remain a concern around the league, especially since he'll be making $42.4 million annually over the next 4 years. But Luka is the solution to any offensive shortcomings, just as Gobert is for a defense. The Mavs should at least find out whether the price is right for Rudy Gobert. Acquiring Gobert would signal the Mavs are all in on pursuing a championship in the coming years, but the negotiation would happen around picks. The Jazz aren't going to take less than multiple high-value young pieces in a deal, whether that's players or picks. So in the event of a deal with the Mavs, a deal has to start with somebody like Tim Hardaway Jr. and Davis Bertans as salary fill and then draft picks. So maybe they meet somewhere in the middle with 2 or 3 firsts, perhaps with protections involved, or other second round picks, maybe a young guy like Josh Green. If Mavs fans don't like it, that's fine. But these are the types of moves they should be going for. So I asked Kirk Henderson, a Mavs podcaster and the senior editor of Mavs Moneyball, to see who he thinks the Dallas Mavericks should target.
I have a real spicy take in that I think the Mavericks, if they were to pursue a big, they should pursue John Collins. Now, I don't think Atlanta would ever do business with them ever again, at least with the team that they have, But I think he does a lot of the things that their bigs can't do. He's he improved on defense. He tries hard. The effort is there, where I think in previous years it might not have been. Ayton would be pretty hilarious, but I think it'd be pretty difficult to do just between the restricted free agency and stuff like that.
How about Nick Claxton from Brooklyn?
Love Nick Claxton.
Sign and trade. Okay.
Yeah. Might have
How about Gobert at 40 plus million?
No, thank you.
Okay. No, thank you on Gobert.
Mo Bamba.
Yeah, how about
now
Bamba?
We're
low costs.
Kind of love the Mo Bamba idea. Kind of love it. I might be a sick person at this point, but bigs are probably the they're in terms of supply and demand. They're the most readily available commodity, and I think the Mavericks have to kind of try to mix and match. Their books don't really allow for very much, so they're going to have to get creative. They're going to have to see if there are any, players that maybe might want to play with Luka Doncic in a role where he makes them look good. Because I can't emphasize enough the fact that Dwight Powell tore his Achilles in January of 2020 and is starting in the Western Conference Finals. Granted, he plays like 5 minutes, but Maxi Kleber's undrafted. Like there's real options here if there are players that are interested that would like to, Luka makes guys look better. Kirk's 100% right about that last point. If any big wants to increase their value, they should go to Dallas, or maybe they can thrive even more with Luka. So a guy like Yusuf Nurkic, he makes some sense as a target in a sign and trade if Portland wants to move him. And I also wonder if there's a price that Indiana would accept for Miles Turner. It's worth keeping in mind, though, the Mavs have limited assets. Dallas has the taxpayer mid-level exception worth $6.4 million. So maybe Ayton's backup, JaVale McGee, would make sense as a target for that. They also have a $10.9 million trade exception from the Josh Richardson deal. So a big could work into that, or maybe even a wing making less, such as Alec Burks or Royce O'Neal. And just thinking beyond some of those names at wing, some potential free agents in mind include PJ Tucker, TJ Warren, or Gary Harris. Veterans and trades might be Eric Gordon, Harrison Barnes, or Kyle Kuzma. And one player under 25 years old could be Jonathan Isaac, who hasn't played in 2 years with the Magic, so he'd be a major risk, but the upside is high considering the last time we saw him, that dude was a monster on defense, and that's what Dallas needs, more size and versatility. The disappointing part is that the Mavs haven't found answers through the drafts. But they've had god-awful roster building for the better part of a decade, only they got Luka and Brunson in one draft, which, much like Dirk Nowitzki in 1999, tends to paper over a lot of mistakes. You know, when you have the key player, you have some wiggle room. And the Mavericks, you know, they've essentially had a lot of the same roster from the trade for Kristaps Porzingis in January of 2019 up until they sent Kristaps Porzingis to Washington, D.C. for Spencer Dinwiddie. And they just didn't really change out that many players, kept trying and not really building any depth. They've not done well with the draft. Just to put it kindly, it's about bites of the apple, in my opinion. In 2020, they had Josh Green and they selected your guy, Tyrell Terry up at Stanford. And then I can't even remember.
I ranked him way too high. People talk about my Killian Hayes mistake, not about the Tyrell Terry mistake.
Right. And it happens. And it's, you do a comparison to like the Warriors. It's just when you hit on these late round guys, it makes all the difference in the world as you're building towards something. And when you don't, you end up having to play Frank Ntilikina and Marquise Chris actual minutes in a 2022 playoff game.
This is an important offseason for the Mavericks to improve their depth and to assure there are no weak links on defense and no offensive liabilities. And one of the other pieces they could use to improve the roster is Jalen Brunson, who's going to be an unrestricted free agent. ESPN's Tim McMahon reported that Brunson could receive $20 million to $25 million annually, which is right around the same ballpark that I'm hearing too for him. The Mavs, there's a strong argument to be made that they should keep him, but whether he's the best fit with Luka is the question their front office is going to be asking themselves. Jalen Brunson raised his stock during the playoffs, averaging 21.6 points and 3.7 assists. He ran 19.8 pick and rolls per game in the postseason and generated a strong 1.03 points per chance, according to Second Spectrum. When he isolated, it was an excellent 1.1 points per chance in the postseason. At age 25, everything that worked for him in the regular season was finally translating to the playoffs. We saw it right away in the first round against Utah. The Mavs frequently attached Donovan Mitchell, who was no match for Brunson's slippery ball handling ability on his way to the paint. Brunson manipulates Mitchell first with the crossover between the legs, then the hesitation to throw him off balance before spinning into his floater, which is per usual for him. Brunson understands exactly who he is. While he's not blessed with elite size or athleticism, he does have excellent footwork to put defenders in a spin cycle. But against the Suns, he got off to a slow start against their superior defense. His lack of foot speed made it more difficult to create space. As the series advanced, though, he had better moments, scoring in the same type of way he did against the Jazz with patience and nifty footwork. Teams around the league wonder what he could do with an even higher usage, because the difference between the 22 and 21 season was largely his workload. Last season, he tried 2.4 isolations per game compared to more than double at 4.9 this season, and now it was over 10 in the playoffs. 1 year after Rick Carlisle trimmed Brunson's playoff minutes, Jason Kidd has helped to unlock his versatility. He can attack into a post-up and then put moves on his man to get into fadeaway jumpers, and he has patience. With the ball in his hands, he can probe some more before making his move to get to the basket. He's mastering the nuance of his own style. Here in this pick and roll, he has Gary Payton on his hip, gives him a slight bump while stepping hard to his right. That changes Payton's angle before he pivots back left to get into his floater. Sometimes he'll throw shimmies to get defenders off their feet before driving inside, and there's that floater again. Brunson tops the NBA on floaters, shooting 52%. That was an important tool against Gobert in the first round because of his rim protection, and he knows when to toggle between scoring or playmaking as a point guard because he has the creativity to open passing windows for teammates. He minimizes turnovers, and when Luka was sidelined earlier this season, Brunson averaged around 7 assists per game. With Luka on the floor, Brunson naturally needs to play off ball a lot, and he's made 37.1% of his spot-up threes over his entire career, which makes him a good but not great fit next to Luka, because Luka can draw double teams to find Brunson for corner three-point attempts, and when Luka attacks the basket, he always relocates to get himself open for a shot, and in this instance, Luka gets him the ball back here for a corner three again. But defenses aren't sweating Brunson like they would a 40+% guy. He embraces a secondary role behind Doncic, and as good as he is, he's only 6'1", not an elite shooter, and he's not a stopper on defense. The inherent issue with the fit is that Brunson is at his best with the ball in his hands, but so is Luka. They run a lot of the same actions, whereas the ideal fit for Luka is a player who is good with the ball in his hands, but at his best without it. So while Brunson is a good piece next to Luka, other options should at least be explored. McMahon reported that the Mavs will not consider any sign and trade scenarios involving Brunson, but given his sustained play and increased price tag, they might have to. and teams around the league are going to have interest. The Pistons and Knicks are two teams that we know do, according to McMahon, but it's also worth considering how the Mavs themselves could pursue sign-in trades with other players, even though they don't have cap space. So if teams are going to be going for Brunson, if you're Dallas, why not go for Zach LaVine, another unrestricted free agent? Why not go for a double sign-in trade? Or it could be a guy under contract with a player option like a Bradley Beal. I keep hearing that Washington's going to keep him. He's going to sign that max there. But the bottom line is the Mavs need to be taking swings. They made the West Finals. That's a major step forward for the franchise, but Luka alone doesn't guarantee future success. The Mavs might run into the Warriors in an earlier round next season. The Suns could reload. So could the Lakers for that matter. What if Zion Williamson gets healthy and the Pelicans turn into a force? The Mavs aren't the only team trying to get better this summer, and the NBA is a lot deeper now than it was before. Dirk had to lose 10 times in the postseason before finally winning a championship. Luka just made the playoffs for only the third time in 4 seasons, and he's not going anywhere anytime soon. This is only the beginning, but the Mavs gotta be urgent building around him to contend for titles. Luka is a 23-year-old potential MVP on a Hall of Fame trajectory, signed for 5 more years, still yet to reach his prime. Thank you so much for watching this week's episode of The Void. Subscribe to The Ringer. You get videos in your feed every single day. Thank you. Have a good one.